What I want to talk about with you right now is the fact that we do not want to waste these precious nutrient-dense foods that we're getting from the farmer's market. And what I mean by that is we need to find a way to preserve this and save it for later. Because when you have the ability to freeze and store these fresh vegetables, you can have it up to 8 to 12 months. So being able to learn how to freeze appropriately, label, and store is really, really important so that we can have fresh vegetables and fruits throughout the year. All right, so when you're dealing with freezing your fruits and vegetables is the debate of to blanch or not to blanch. Now, blanching is a specific cooking technique in which you boil it for a short amount of time and then you transfer it immediately to an ice bath. That ice bath, which would look similar to this, is going to stop that cooking process and lock in the color and the nutrients that you want to maintain by doing this technique. So one of the things I want to go through is what can you not blanch and what do you need to blanch and what needs to be fully cooked to be put into the freezer. So if you have any extra celery, any extra onions and peppers and tomatoes, those are the ones that you just need to clean up, trim, and put in the freezer. So for example, if you had yourself a Roma tomato or even a grape tomato like that, or even cherries, these ones are smaller. You do not have to fully cook these. You do not have to blanch these. You just have to take the center core out, slice them, put them in a bag, and freeze them. They'll be beautiful. And what I mean is you need to take a knife and just gently core the tops to get that pit out, which is I call it the seed scar, the stem scar. Now, the reason why they advise to do such, and it should look like that when you're done, is when they thaw, that tough, dense stem scar doesn't cook well and doesn't break down very well while you're cooking it. So by removing it before you're freezing it, you can just throw them into a pot, into a roast, and there you go. It's ready to be cooked, frozen and all. All right, now you can do the same thing with your grape and your cherry tomatoes. Okay, now if you're working with sauce that's already cooked, say you made a spaghetti sauce out of your fresh tomatoes, you can actually just bag it or put it in a freezer-tight container, label it by date, and I just use a Sharpie marker to do so. Make sure you date it because frozen foods will tend to lose their texture and their flavor out after 8 to 12 months in the freezer. So you want to keep an eye on that to make sure your freshness stays intact. So let's talk about the ones that you have to completely cook. You're talking about your beets. Cook them, freeze them. Potatoes, cook them, freeze them. Sweet potatoes, tomatoes are the same way, and any of your squash. You do want to cook them. They're going to come out pretty much the same if you put your squash in the freezer uncooked when you thought it's going to be raw. By cooking it, you're locking in the nutrients so they're not leached out during the months in the freezer. So be mindful of that when you're dealing with squash. It can be frozen, but it does best if you cook it ahead of time. Now let's talk about those that need partially cooked, and that's our blanching process. It depends on what you're working with and what vegetable you're dealing with. For example, there is a range between 2, 3, or 4 minutes worth of blanching process in the boiling water. For example, for 2 minutes, you're talking about your carrots, parsnips, peas, even your snap or snows, spinach, and other leafy greens. You just want to put them in there for 2 minutes, time it carefully, pull it out, drop it in your ice bath. Those that need to be for 3 minutes. You're talking about asparagus, your beans, all beans, wax beans, green beans, any of the lima beans, use this 3-minute rule. Broccoli, cauliflower, you can actually do celery, even though you do not have to. I mentioned earlier with celery, you could just clean it up, cut it up, freeze it raw. Summer squash, including zucchini, can be done this way also. So that's your 3-minute. Your 4-minute is those dense type of vegetables, such as corn on the cob. Leave the corn on the cob, drop it in for 4 minutes, drop it in your ice bath, and cut off the corn straight off the cob. And that is the best way to do your corn on the cob. And you can do your eggplants also. If you blanch them in pieces for up to 4 minutes, ice bath them, and then freeze them, and everything will be good. The demonstration that I want to show you for you today is I'm going to be using green beans. Green beans are very, very popular at the farmers markets. They come in all shapes and sizes. You can get lima beans, wax beans, or just green beans. They all take the same amount of time and the same process. So what you want to do first is make sure that they are cleaned and trimmed, making sure that your stems are clean on each end and you don't have the woody portion of where it grows off the plant. That snap them. Make sure they're snapped. You can snap them in half to make them smaller, more palatable, depending on what you prefer, or you can also cut them, whichever you wish. Or you can leave them in the whole size, meaning that you can make them, cut them into what you want later on. All right, in doing so, you want to make sure when you're doing the blanching process that you have a large pot of water already on the stove at a boiling, at a roll. You not just with the bubbles around the sides. You want the water to be completely boiling. That means rolling from the top. So let's go over to our boiling water over here and start it for 3 minutes. So we're going to come over here. And if you notice, my water is at a roll. And we're just going to dump these right in. Start my timer for 3 minutes. If you want to come over and look closer, you can see the depth of color already coming out in the green beans. There's the timer. That means it's time. So let's go over, turn your heat off. You have your ice bucket. Get those out, put them in your ice bath. Now you want to do this pretty quickly because that ice is actually going to stop the cooking process. So what I'm going to do now is kind of give it a shuffle and a movement around so that all the green beans get in there and into that ice bath. And if you have to, spread your ice over top to get it to cool down your green beans. All right, so let's take this over here. Now, there are 2 ways, 2 steps that you can do next. As those are cooling, you can lay yourself down a towel and just tap them dry. Or you can take a tray and put them straight on a tray, put them like even layered into the freezer until they're firm. What this prevents from happening is all this extra water being frozen around your vegetables and then being hard and as a block of ice. And if you can flash freeze it or make sure that you tap them nice and dry, they don't stick together or clump together with all this extra water. So let's get these out of the bath. Get that ice out of there. I'm just going to use my hand here because they're not hot. They're ice cold now. So I'm going to just get the remainder out, right? And so I want to show you something. I'm going to take one. And if you notice, they still have a snap to them. They come cleanly break. They didn't mush on me. If you look closely, they're not mushy. They still have a crispness to them, which keeps that texture that you wanted to get through the blanching process. So now we want to take this, kind of pat them dry. Get as much of that extra liquid off with your towel. Get yourself a freezer bag. You can use anything that's freezer safe. So freezer bags or even containers that can seal tight that are freezer safe. Make sure you write the date and today's date. All right, make sure you put that on there for record so that you make sure you're eating fresh. Get them in your bag. They can last in a freezer this way 8 to 12 months. And probably even longer, as long as we don't waste and not get freezer burn. They do change after 12 months with that freezer burn possibility. And there we go. We have a fresh serving or two, and that's about 4 servings of green beans right there, and can feed your family sometime in December. So let's recap a little bit in the process and the importance of blanching. Blanching is a way to keep freshness, locking in the nutrients and the color and the freshness and texture of your vegetables so that we don't waste them. So the important part to this is making sure you clean, trim all of your vegetables. The next step is what you want to do is make sure your water is at a rolling boil. Not just the bubble showing up on the side, but a rolling bubble. Then you place your vegetable into that boiling water, noting the time, determining which one to use, 2, 3, or 4 minutes. Then to promptly have an ice bath ready. When the timer goes off, transfer them into that ice bath. Let's make sure they cool completely. Then bring them to a towel, drop them on the towel, roll them around, get them patted dry, and add them into a date-labeled bag or container. Now remember, you can also put it on like a cookie tray and put flat one single layer after you take it out of the ice bath. Put it in the freezer, and that is another way to get them to stop them from freezing and sticking together.